Jason always said it was going to be a 3-season arc. So I think we were all just treating this as our 3 seasons, and we all left it on the field this last season for sure.
To believe in yourself, to believe in one another, man, that's fundamental to being alive.
For me personally, having worked on Ted Lasso just before going into lockdown was a huge privilege, and it did help so many people. It gave people medicine. It was the perfect timing to be released, really.
You know, I think it's signaled a change in the way we make comedy, maybe.
What do you say to a cocktail, Coach Lasso?
Oh, same thing I'd say to Diane Sawyer if she ever asked me out on a date. Yes, please.
A lot of comedy is mean. A lot of comedy, there's the butt of the joke. And at Ted Lasso, there were no butts of the jokes. The jokes were about things we could all relate to, but nobody was being laughed at. It's hard not to be anything other than moved by the effect of Lasso.
I'm glad you like them. You know what? I'll start bringing these to you every morning. Called Biscuits with the Boss.
That really isn't necessary.
Okay, well, mark this down as the first time we disagree then.
When the script came to me, Jason was obviously on board to play Ted Lasso and Brendan Hunt was on board to play Coach Beard. But apart from that, we had to cast everybody else. They got me on early to really focus on Rebecca Welton, the female lead.
Do you have lunch plans?
As a matter of fact, I do.
I don't care, Ted. You're coming to lunch with me and my mother.
Okay, sounds great.
She's a complicated creature, Rebecca Welton. So she had to have a lot of range, many different facets. Originally, there was some sort of hope from the studio, perhaps, that we might cast someone who was known to an international audience. And so we sort of did a lot of work going through names on lists of sort of more starry people, but no one quite worked out. And then when we were finally able to audition some ladies, took quite a while. And then Hannah Waddingham walked in finally, and it all made sense.
Football isn't just a game.
With Rebecca's look, I kind of had it in my head, and Hannah and I were always on the same page, and Jason, that if you've just been through a nasty breakup, especially if you've got to face the world, and a world like, the Premier League, you want to put your war paint on. So from day dot, we were always like, when we first see Rebecca, she has to look extremely polished because, she was very much in the public eye and she didn't want to be seen to be breaking down publicly. And then if we ever had the opportunity to show her at home, broken down a little bit, we always took that opportunity where we would take the hair out, take the makeup off, and all that kind of thing. And I think as her friendship with Keeley progressed, and as she fell more in love with Richmond and her friendship with Ted progressed, those walls start to come down a bit and she's slightly less polished.
I was trying to get an idea of the feel of Rebecca and, a professional, strong woman, and what her kind of space might be and what her kind of choices would be. And it was quite a tricky thing to get right, but I think it was a really nice mix of different elements of gold and dark browns and wallpaper and paint, and people seem to like it. And the sofa being one of the major elements that she could then not only be behind her desk but also be quite kind of less formal with people and sat and discussing elements.
I respect that you need to go home.
The scene where Hannah suggests to Ted that he stay on and think of England as his home was always going to be a big scene for those two to do. And it mirrors a scene where Ted and Roy have a conversation and they literally want to sit in the same seats. Jason was very adamant, I want to sit in those same 2 seats. So visually, we knew where we were going. We knew, this was a much longer scene than that.
I think a lot of us are feeling how Rebecca's feeling, like we want you to stay, and everything she says in the stands when they're having their heart-to-heart and she asks them to stay, that was, that scene in particular, I think my first cut of it, there was more tears when Rebecca kind of breaks and says, please stay, Ted. She had a take where she was crying more, and I remember Jason being like, we're going to do that at the end in the airport.
Jason had written the scene And it was always going to be a very pivotal scene because he turns her down. She says, this is the point where you say you've got to think about it, and tomorrow we have the exact same conversation, you say no. But he wasn't even, she didn't need to wait for that to happen. She knew his answer.
Still think I'd be underpaying you for what you mean to this club?
Uncle Roy, can we get ice cream?
No. Sorry.
Season 1, I was in the cutting room saying, I love Roy Kent. This guy is amazing. The character of the bad boy with a heart of gold and the way he just was so endearing, and finding those little nuggets that softened him, where he would, know the lyrics to Let It Go, and seeing his relationship with his niece.
Truth is, they just want to feel like they're part of our lives. Little idiots. What's this? Phoebe, do you want to come to my podiatrist appointment later?
Yes, please.
Roy Kent, the character, was originally based on Roy Keane, who's an Irish footballer. And so, we were seeing lots of Irish people, lots of comedians, and then word came back from the writer's room, Brett wants to put his hat in the ring. Great. And he just came back with his tape and created this amazing character that is so unlike how he is as a person.
Does my face look like it's in the mood for shape-based jokes?
No, Roy, it does not.
Brett is the sweetest, softest, loveliest guy that you could possibly meet. And so he is nothing of the gruffness of Roy Kent.
When I first met Brett, he said, what do you want to do with me? I said, well, to be honest, you're about as close to perfect as perfect can get. I mean, I knew his story arc, so I knew he should never have a very full beard because he was going to be stood next to Coach Beard. And he should never have a moustache on its own because it's not, it's a Ted look, and it's not he's a London trendy footballer. Brett was really up for whatever we wanted to do. He was really easygoing with it, and I think we went the right path. I love that we could let his beard grow at the start of season 2 when he'd left Richmond and was a little bit sad. Another opportunity to utilize facial hair to show stress. But then as soon as he became a football pundit and we were able to, get him back to normal, it then had that impact where people were like, wow, there he is. And he's so good looking, isn't he? I mean, the guy, you can't really go wrong with Brett, let's face it.
I think you are super hot. If I'm going to dip my toe back into the lady pool, I can't think of a finer body of water to do it with than you. I'm fucking with you.
Keeley is the funnest character. Phoebe had 44 different hair and makeup looks for Keeley. Juno is just so beautiful. In season 3, we definitely wanted to make Keeley a little bit more sophisticated because she's got her own company. We definitely wanted to push her a little bit more, but we didn't want to lose the Keeley-ness either.
Boy, sucks butt that everyone's predicted Richmond to finish last. I mean, what? You're not actually worried about that though, right?
No, not really.
Hey, Jamie, come here real quick. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, keep them hips loose.
Jamie Tart, to me, had the largest arc. I go back and watch season 1 and see, Jamie was the Prince Prick of all pricks, as Roy Kent called him. And, he was also came across as a, a bit of an airhead, this cocky guy who didn't know anything. And then I started to see hints of him changing when I was cutting episode 210. And I was like, wow, this character's going to go somewhere. The comedy scene, in the boot room where Roy's like, we need you to be the biggest prick you've ever been in your little prick life. And then he just breaks down.
So we need you to be the prickiest prick you've ever been in your little prick life. You understand? So I don't want you.
Just the way they came up with that thing where Phil is putting his hands all over Roy's face. And that was just done on 1 or 2 takes where they discovered that.
Where the my wings, Roy? Yeah!
I saw Phil a lot when he came over for the premieres, and I just told him what a wonderful performance he gave, and I'm so thrilled that he's nominated.
How you been?
Pretty good. Okay. A little depressed.
That was a real roller coaster there.
Jason has always said that he looks at editing as the final rewrite, which is, music to my ears as an editor. There was a great piece of improv when the team is down in the sewer, and Ted asked the team, said, what are we surrounded by down here? And Jamie Tart raises his hand and says, Coach, we're surrounded by poop.
What are we surrounded by down here?
Coach.
Yeah, Jamie.
We're surrounded by poop.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And that was something that he had come up with. I think he might have talked about it with Jason, but did not tell the rest of the team. And I used Phil and Brett's kind of 2-shot close coverage, and Brett Goldstein is standing right next to him, and I used the take as long as I could before Brett just starts cracking up at that, and then the whole cast just started laughing. So Jason picked up on that later, and on his coverage finished the line and said, "Yeah, that's true, but there's a whole
bunch of poop up there as well, yeah?"
And everybody laughed again. So those are those little gems that just get discovered on set, and I love that when we find those, because they just have great comedy energy, and it's something that's not written, and it's just really special.
Thank you, fellas. That was perfect.
Season 3 was cutting like 12 individual feature films.
It was really a special season in that way, where everyone just kind of took a little bit more risk and gave a little bit more of their creative selves.
Jason had a very solid basis of, had a very solid knowledge of where this was all coming from. When we first spoke, he talked a lot about fatherhood and, what it meant to be a father, and toxic masculinity, and how bad parenting and bad fatherhood had affected people so much. And that's so beautifully illustrated in the characters. I think my favorite scene, and it will be from the very final episode, the Believe poster has been torn down by Nate, and then Ted rips it up again, and we never see it again, and it's gone. And halftime, they're 2-1 down at halftime on this final game. And he said, "I've got nothing to say to you, but I know that you're going to go back out there and be the best versions of yourselves you can be. Has anybody got anything to add?" And Tahib, Sam Obasanya, reaches into his locker and takes out a piece of paper, and it's a sliver of yellow paper, and puts it down on the table in the middle of the room. And then one after another, everybody else does, and we realize they've all kept a piece of the Believe poster. So some people had it in the shin guards. Isaac, the captain, had it under his armband. Jamie Tart had put it in the book that Ted gave him 2 years ago, which he's never read, but he put it in the book as a bookmark. So everybody has kept a sliver of the paper, and they all put the piece of paper down. And then they look at it and go, "Oh," and then they all start to rearrange it back into the Believe poster. But my favorite moment was they all stood around it. Nate was at one end, Ted was at the other end with the other coaches. And when all the bits of paper were down, all the heads went down, and the only two people standing were Ted and Nate opposite each other. And there's a beautiful moment between them where they catch each other's eyes. And you know that the forgiveness is complete, that Ted has completely forgiven Nate, and that Nate feels he is back home. That Richmond is home.
And there it is. Number 4. Yeah.
For me, season 3, although it was bittersweet, the ending, Jason, Ted saying goodbye to the team, having made them that video. We were all there. That was the very last thing we shot, apart from the him going home to America, where a few of us went and shot. That was the last thing we shot as a whole crew and cast. And those tears were real.
Jason always loved the editing process, because it was just a moment where it was just really me, him, Melissa, and our assistant editors, and it was just a really tight-knit family. And what we were doing, by season 3, the studio and the network just gave Jason so much trust. It was like, it was always his show in his head, and we were all trying to help him get it to the screen. But in this moment, it was just really him and us as editors, and that just is something I know he appreciated. And to be given the privilege to choose amongst all this amazing footage and takes to figure out what are the pieces we're going to use to make that episode, that just felt like such an incredible honor, and I won't forget it.
Working on this show has been the culmination of many hopes and dreams since I was a teenager, of working in comedy with people at the top of their game. And I never thought I'd get here, but here I am.
As soon as we started filming season 1, I could see there was something really special happening, and it has literally changed so many of our lives, so many of our careers, this show. And I know people say that about a lot of shows, but I do think the message behind Ted Lasso is a little bit different. And what you see on camera is genuinely what is behind the camera.
That the show is very good and you're making something that people really love to watch is hugely rewarding anyway. But when you're going to work and work itself is a laugh, I mean, it really is a lot of fun. It was extremely hard work, but every day was a laugh because the stuff is funny. The people you're working with are really great. They're a lovely bunch of people and they are very funny. And to go to work every day and just be having the best old time, it's hard to beat that.
Well, it's been an amazing experience for myself being part of Ted Lasso. I mean, I've never been nominated for anything before, and I've now been nominated for 3 Emmy Awards in a row, which this year was even more surprising because we're in a different category. And I think also I've worked on other shows that have a kind of following or have a kind of fan base, but nothing to the extent of Ted. And it's actually been lovely just hearing the stories from people who've been touched so much, or it's helped them through a bad time, or they've been ill and they've watched the show and it's made them feel better. And also it seems to make people feel a bit better about other people and relationships and life. And, you know, sometimes you just think, well, you're just working on television or you're just working on a film. But when it has that effect on people, it's amazing.
Love you all to bits. It really became a big family where we all know each other. Cast, crew, the production designer, our hair and makeup team came by. Everybody came to LA and sat in our room. So it was really special. It was a special season because I think we all knew, you know, what we had done together was something that elevated us all. When Jason, as Ted says, there aren't a lot of places like AFC Richmond.
There ain't a whole lot of places like AFC Richmond either.
I really felt like he was talking to all of us on the crew and the cast. And every time I watched it, I was just like, I feel so lucky that I got to do this show for this 3 seasons with Jason and build this community and have this message. And it really is. It's a team and a family. And I know how rare that is in this business. It's a gift that I don't take lightly. I really don't.
Getting to work with y'all these last 3 years has truly been one of the greatest experiences of my life. I've loved getting to know each and every single one of you. You know, when I showed up here, I didn't know one thing about soccer. But now I know at least one thing about football. I'm just so gosh dang proud to be a part of this team. And I love you guys.